My wife betrayed me with my best friend and then secretly inherited $500, $0 from her late uncle. Now she's trying to take everything, including the house and our savings, in our bitter divorce battle over the $700K estate. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here telling a story about how my wife, Lisa, betrayed me with my best friend, Jake. It all came crashing down so fast, I still can't quite believe it's real. The thing is, I had no idea how deep the betrayal went until I stumbled onto the truth in the most unexpected way, like something out of a damn soap opera. One night I was just trying to unwind after a long week, flipping through my phone when I noticed a message pop up on Lisa's Instagram. It was from Jake. Nothing unusual on the surface, just a quick DM about a game night or something. But what caught my eye was the timestamp, 2:47 a.m. That was strange. Lisa always went to bed early, and Jake, he was never up that late unless he was working or something. I didn't think much of it at first, just a casual glance. But then I saw it. A string of messages that didn't make sense. Flirty comments, emojis that seemed way too suggestive for friends, and an undercurrent of something more. That's when I started digging. I went through her phone, something I honestly didn't want to do but felt I had to. That's when I found the photos. Not just texts, but naked pictures of Lisa, taken in our bedroom on our bed. My wife, my partner, lying there in her own skin, sharing herself with Jake. My stomach sank. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How long had this been going on? Had I been blind all along? The worst part was that she'd lied about everything, saying she was busy, tired, stressed, anything but the truth. And then I remembered the recent change in her behavior. She was secretive, always on her phone, sneaking around, even lying about where she was going. I thought she was just stressed with work, but it was something else entirely. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat there, staring at those photos and trying to process what I'd just discovered. I felt so betrayed, so humiliated, like I'd been played for a fool. And the anger, oh, was boiling over. How could she do this to me, to us? We had built a life together, or so I thought. I never saw this coming. I kept asking myself how long it had been going on, if she ever loved me at all, or if I'd just been some backup plan while she was out there screwing my best friend. I remember feeling so numb, like I'd lost a part of myself that night. But I knew I couldn't let this go. I had to confront her. I had to hear her explain herself, even if I already knew the answer. The next morning I woke up early, my mind racing. I decided I'd confront her face to face. No more hiding. I was done being the fool. I had to know what she was thinking, why she did it, and what her plans were now. I also knew that this wasn't just about the affair. It was about the money, the inheritance she'd secretly inherited from her late uncle, 500, zero she never told me about. That was the real reason she was so eager to keep things quiet. I'd always suspected she was hiding something, but I never imagined it was something this big. Now, with the evidence staring me in the face, I felt like I had all the pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to solve, except I knew I had to. I had to figure out what she was planning, what her next move was, and how I was going to fight back. Because if she thought she could just cheat on me and walk away with the money, the house, and everything we'd built, she was dead wrong. The plan was forming in my head even as I sat there, trembling with a mix of fury and heartbreak. I wasn't going to let her take everything without a fight. She might think she's smarter, more manipulative, but I was done being the victim. This was about to get messy. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. I woke her up that morning, my hands trembling, my mind racing with anger and betrayal. I told her I knew everything, about the affair, the pictures, the lies. Her eyes widened for a split second, and then that fake, bitchy smile she always threw on when she thought she was clever spread across her face. "You're overreacting, Jason," she said, flipping her hair dismissively. "It's just sex, and Jake been going through a rough patch. We're just friends. Honestly, I don't see what the big deal is." I stared at her, feeling my blood boil. "Just sex. You're sending him naked pictures of yourself in our bed. That's not just sex, Lisa, that's betrayal. And I saw the messages. You're lying through your teeth." She rolled her eyes, scoffing. "You're crazy. You're always so paranoid. Jake and I were just friends. You're making a mountain out of a molehill." I didn't buy it, not for a second. I knew her too well. She's always been the kind of woman who lies to cover her ass, who manipulates her way out of trouble. But this was different. She was caught dead to rights. I told her I'd seen enough, that I knew about the inheritance she'd kept hidden from me. Her face flickered with a brief flash of panic, but she quickly masked it. Inheritance? What are you talking about? She asked, feigning innocence. I knew she was lying. I had the bank statements, the probate papers, everything. She'd secretly inherited $500, $0 from her late uncle, something she was trying to keep under wraps, probably because she knew I'd be furious. That money was supposed to be ours, but suddenly she was acting like she was entitled to it all. And now she was trying to take everything, our house, our savings, the entire estate, because she thought she could get away with it. I felt like I'd been punched again. How could she be so ruthless, so calculating? I told her I was done playing her game, that I was going to get a lawyer, and that she wasn't taking a damn thing from me without a fight. She sneered and said, "You're overreacting, Jason. You're just jealous. Jake and I never did anything serious. It's just sex, remember?" That's when I lost it. I told her that her just sex was with my best friend, and that it wasn't just some fling, it was a full-blown affair. I told her I knew she'd been planning this, that she'd been sneaking around, hiding the inheritance, and trying to use it to take everything I had worked so hard for. Her face twisted into a venomous smirk. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Well, I've got news for you. That money is mine now, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep it. You can't stop me." That's when I realized she wasn't just a liar, she was a predator, a woman who would do anything to get her way. I felt a cold, hard resolve settle inside me. I wasn't going down without a fight. I told her I was filing for divorce, that I'd fight her for every penny, every asset, and that I'd make sure she never took what was rightfully mine. I knew then that this wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about her trying to steal my life, my future, everything I had. I had to act fast. I called my lawyer that same day, and that's when the real game began. I didn't trust her one bit, and I knew she was capable of anything. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much she'd been planning this. Her lies, her secret inheritance, her betrayal with Jake. It all fit together like a sick puzzle. And I was determined to put an end to it. I had to protect what was mine. I had to stop her from taking everything I'd worked for and rebuild from the ashes. This was just the beginning. After I confronted Lisa that morning, everything changed. The house felt colder, heavier. Her face was a mask of innocence, but I saw the flicker of guilt and something darker behind her eyes. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was overreacting, that Jake was just a friend, and that the money she inherited was nothing but a coincidence. But I knew better. I'd seen the bank statements, I'd seen the probate papers. That money was her secret weapon, and she was already scheming about how to keep it all. I told her I wasn't buying her lies anymore. I was calling my lawyer, and I was going to fight for what was mine. That's when she snapped. Her voice turned bitchy, sharp, full of venom. "You think you're so smart, Jason. You're just jealous. Jake and I were just having some fun. You're so paranoid, it's pathetic. And that inheritance, I earned it, not you. So don't try to guilt me into giving you a dime." I couldn't believe how cold she was being. It was like she did care about any of the damage she was causing. I felt my fists clench, my jaw tighten. I told her if she thought she could just lie and manipulate her way out of this, she was dead wrong. I'd already started the process of divorce, and I was prepared to fight her for everything. Our house, savings, the inheritance, even custody of the kids if I had to. She scoffed at that, saying I was just trying to scare her. But I knew better. I'd been around long enough to see the way she was planning her next move, the way she was trying to spin this story to make herself look innocent. She kept insisting she loved me, that Jake was just a temporary mistake, that she'd never cheat on me if I'd just believe her. But I wasn't buying it. I could see through her bullshit now. That night, I started digging into her finances more deeply. I wanted proof of her plans, her moves. I wanted to know how far she was willing to go to keep that inheritance. Turns out, she'd already transferred a good chunk of the money into an offshore account, money I didn't even know she had access to. That's when I realized this wasn't just about infidelity. It was about her greed, her willingness to lie, cheat, and manipulate to get what she wanted. I was furious. I sat up all night, drafting a detailed plan to expose her. I reached out to my lawyer, got a forensic accountant involved, and started gathering every piece of evidence I could find. I knew she was planning to drain the account, hide assets, and make this divorce as messy and costly as possible. I had to beat her to it. I also decided I'd set a trap. I told her I was willing to reconcile, that I just wanted honesty, and I was going to give her a chance to come clean. But secretly, I was planning to catch her red-handed. I arranged for a private investigator to watch her movements, especially around her bank accounts and her phone. I wanted to see if she'd try to transfer more money or make any suspicious moves. I knew she'd be desperate, manipulative, and probably reckless. I was ready for that. The sad thing is, I still loved her. At least I thought I did, so part of me kept hoping she'd come clean. But deep down, I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. Not after everything I'd seen and heard. The betrayal cut so deep that I started questioning everything about our life together. Was any of it real? Did she ever love me? Or was I just a placeholder while she plotted her next move? As the days went on, I felt more determined than ever to protect what was mine. She could lie all she wanted, spin her stories, cry crocodile tears. None of it mattered. I had the evidence, the legal backing, and a plan. I wasn't going to let her walk away with $500,000, our house, and our savings, not without a fight. And I was preparing myself for the storm ahead, because I knew she'd go to any lengths to keep her grip on that inheritance, and if that meant lying, cheating, or even manipulating the kids, she'd do it. I just hoped I was strong enough to see this through. I was done being the naive husband. From now on, I'd be the guy who fought back. The guy who took control. I had to. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I kept my cool on the surface, but inside I was burning with rage and a sense of betrayal I couldn't shake. I had my lawyer working overtime, digging into every financial detail I could provide. The forensic accountant was tracking every transfer, every suspicious withdrawal. Meanwhile, I set a trap, pretending to be willing to forgive, to reconcile, just to see what she'd do. I told her I wanted to talk, to work this out like adults. That's when she started showing her true colors again. She'd come to me, fake tears in her eyes, saying she loved me, that she was sorry, begging me to trust her. But I saw right through her. I knew she'd been planning her next move. One evening, she left the house claiming she was meeting her sister. I followed her just enough to see her go into a coffee shop where she met Jake. That was the confirmation I needed. They weren't just friends. She was still playing her game, still lying and sneaking around. I felt a mix of disgust and relief. Disgust that she'd do this to me, but relief that I'd caught her again. That night, I confronted her when she got home. I laid out the evidence, the bank transfers, the offshore account, the texts with Jake. She tried to deny everything, but I had her dead to rights. Her face turned pale, then flushed with anger. "You're crazy. You're just jealous," she spat. "Jake and I were just friends. You're overreacting because you're insecure." I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "No, Lisa, I'm not crazy. I'm tired of your lies. You've been planning this from the start. That inheritance, your affair, you're trying to take everything I worked for." Her eyes flickered with desperation, but she kept lying, insisting she hadn't done anything wrong. But I knew her game now. I told her I'd be calling the bank, the lawyer, the investigators, that I'd fight her for every dollar, every asset, that I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Her bitchy attitude only intensified. She told me I was just trying to control her, that I was paranoid and insecure, that she'd never cheat on me. "You're just jealous of Jake," she sneered. But I wasn't buying her act anymore. I was done being the fool. I decided then and there that I'd file for divorce, and I was going to fight her for custody of the kids, the house, everything. I'd be damned if she was going to walk away with half of what we had while I got nothing. That night, I sat down with my lawyer and laid out the whole story. We drafted a plan to freeze her assets, subpoena her bank records, and get a court order to prevent her from transferring any more money. I also scheduled a meeting with a private investigator to keep tabs on her movements. I knew she'd escalate her tactics, but I was ready. I felt like I'd been betrayed on every level, by my wife, my best friend, and even myself for not seeing it coming. The betrayal cut so deep I doubted I'd ever trust anyone again. But I also knew I had to be strong for myself, for the kids, and for the fight ahead. This wasn't over yet, and I wasn't going to let her win. I had more evidence, more leverage, and I was determined to take her down. I just hoped I had enough strength to see it through without losing myself in the process. The next few days would be the worst, I knew that. But I was ready to do whatever it took to protect what was mine, and to finally put an end to her manipulations. Because if I didn't, I was afraid she'd take everything I had, including my dignity. And I wasn't going to let that happen. The week that followed was chaos in the best and worst ways. My lawyer moved quickly, filing the necessary court orders to freeze her bank accounts and prevent her from transferring any more of the inheritance. I also hired the private investigator who kept tabs on Lisa's movements. She was desperately trying to hide her tracks, making secret calls, meeting with Jake, and trying to move money under the radar. Every time I thought I was close to breaking her, she'd throw some new lie or manipulation. But I had the evidence now, and I wasn't backing down. One afternoon, Lisa called me crying, fake tears, of course, begging me to listen. She said she was sorry, that she made a mistake, that it was all just a big misunderstanding. She insisted she loved me and that everything would be fine if I just forgave her. I didn't buy it. For a second, I told her I wasn't interested in her sob stories anymore. I'd seen her lies, her manipulation, and I knew she was still trying to pull a fast one. Her voice turned bitchy again, full of that fake sweetness. "You're just jealous, Jason. You're insecure. Jake and I were just having some fun. You're making a fuss over nothing." That's when I snapped. I told her she was a liar, a cheat, and a thief, that she was trying to steal my life and everything I'd worked for. I said I was going to take her to court, that I'd fight her for custody of the kids, the house, and every cent of that inheritance. I told her she'd regret ever crossing me. She hung up in a rage, screaming at me that I was ruining everything, that I was a controlling asshole. But I knew I was doing what I had to do. I'd been betrayed in the worst way, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I'd already scheduled depositions, and I was preparing for a fight. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude grew more bitter. She started accusing me of trying to ruin her, saying I was just jealous because I couldn't keep her happy. She even tried to spin the story that I was the one cheating, trying to make me look like the villain. It was pathetic, but also infuriating. She was desperate, and her desperation was making her reckless. One night, she tried to leave the house with some boxes of her things. I caught her before she could get out the door. I told her she wasn't going anywhere until we sorted this out legally. She yelled at me, calling me a controlling bastard, saying I was ruining her life. I told her I made my decision, that she wasn't taking a damn thing unless the court said so. That's when she looked at me with pure hatred and spat. "You think you're so smart, Jason, but I've got plans, and I'll make sure you regret this." I knew she was planning something, more lies, more manipulations, but I also knew I had the upper hand now. The evidence was on my side. The court would see through her bullshit. I kept thinking about the inheritance, how she'd secretly inherited that money and was now trying to use it to buy her way out of trouble. I knew she'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. She'd been sneaking around, lying, hiding assets. All of it was about greed, her desire to take everything I'd built. But I wasn't going to let her. I was prepared to fight her for every asset, every dollar, every scrap of dignity she tried to steal from me. I'd never felt more betrayed, more angry, or more determined in my life. In the end, I realized that this wasn't just about money or infidelity. It was about respect, boundaries, and standing up for myself. I knew she'd try to spin it all to make herself the victim, but I had the evidence, the law, and the resolve. I wasn't backing down. This fight was just beginning, and I was ready to see it through, no matter how much she lied, manipulated, or tried to destroy me. Because at the end of the day, I knew the truth. I deserved better than this, and I was going to make damn sure I got it. The court date finally arrived after weeks of intense preparation. I sat there, feeling a strange mixture of exhaustion and determination. Lisa looked confident at first, flashing that bitchy smirk as she sat across from me, but I saw the cracks in her facade when the judge started reviewing the evidence. My lawyer laid out everything: her secret inheritance, her secret accounts, the affair with Jake, the lies she told to manipulate the situation. The judge listened carefully, her eyes narrowing as she absorbed the facts. When I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I told the court about the betrayal, about how Lisa had lied, cheated, and tried to steal everything I'd worked for, including our home and savings. I explained how she'd secretly inherited $500, $0 from her uncle, hidden it from me, and was now trying to use it as a weapon. Lisa's face turned pale, then red with anger. She tried to deny everything, but the evidence was too overwhelming. The judge wasn't buying her sob stories or her manipulative lies. She ordered the immediate freeze of her assets, including the offshore account, and appointed a forensic accountant to track every penny. She also awarded me primary custody of the kids, citing Lisa's reckless behavior and her attempts to manipulate the situation. The final ruling was clear. Lisa was to return the inheritance funds, pay me a fair share of the estate, and stay away from any further attempts to transfer or hide assets. As I left the courthouse, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with lingering anger. I had fought tooth and nail to protect what was mine, and I'd succeeded. Lisa's world was falling apart, her lies exposed, her plans thwarted. I knew she'd be furious, but I didn't care. Justice had been served, and I finally had some peace. Over the next few weeks, I focused on rebuilding my life. I moved out of the house, got a new place, and started therapy to deal with the emotional trauma. The kids and I grew closer, and I made a vow to never let anyone betray me like that again. Looking back, I realized how blind I'd been, trusting someone who was only out for herself, someone who thought she could manipulate her way to wealth and happiness. I learned that money isn't everything, especially when it's used as a weapon. I learned that honesty and loyalty are what really matter. And most of all, I learned that no matter how deep the betrayal, you can come out stronger if you stand your ground. So to anyone out there going through something similar, trust your instincts, gather your evidence, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. People will try to lie, cheat, and manipulate their way out of trouble, but ultimately the truth will come to light. Protect yourself, your assets, and your dignity. Because if you don't, no one else will. And in the end, you're the only one responsible for your happiness and your future.